Hello and welcome to PeaSoup Hosting. My name is Harold Buter and I'm the CTO. In today's video I will explain about disaster recovery as a service using the PeaSoup Cloud. I've created an agenda which will be in the next slide, and in the agenda we will cover the following points. First of all, we will have an introduction, quickly what is disaster recovery as a service using our technology. We go through the requirements which is needed on premise, and then we have some demo videos to show you. This video will take about half an hour in total with all the videos. PeaSoup Disaster Recovery as a Service is using Zerto 4.0. It's the best virtualware disaster recovery tool in the market today. It's software based and it means no downtime during installation. It's cross-hypervisor application, so from Hyper-V to VMware, from VMware to VMware, from VMware to Hyper-V, it's all possible. It's agnostic, so it doesn't matter what storage or hardware you have at your primary site. Replication is done on block level per virtual machine. Zerto is not using any snapshots, which is great news because it's non-invasive for your production environment. Testing can be done non-disruptive. You can test at any time, any place, whenever you want. The recovery point objective with Zerto is seconds. The recovery time objective is minutes. It's literally the boot time of the virtual machine at the recovery side. With Zerto we've got the ability to recover to previous points. It's actually a journal-based CDP. Depending on the time settings that we set, it can go up to 24 hours. Protection groups are used to assure consistent recovery of applications that have multiple virtual machines. With Zerto we are able to re-IP your service for tests and failover. I will show this functionality in the video. Zerto provides a fully automated disaster recovery. The only thing you have to do is press a button and decide when to failover and what to failover. With Zerto it's very easy to install. There is no additional hardware required on your primary site. It reduces complexity massively. In this video we'll be using quite a lot of Zerto's abbreviations. I took a moment to write them down for you in this glossary. Please take a few seconds to take them into you because we will be using them a lot during the demonstration videos. So what do you need for disaster recovery as a service for your on-prem location? First of all, you will need a Windows server. 2008 R2 or 2012 server, standard server would be sufficient. With that installed, a vArray will be installed per ESXi host or per Hyper-V host, depending on what hypervisor you'll be using. Next to that we will need a vCenter server for VMware or a System Center server for Hyper-V. We need to set up a site-to-site VPN tunnel between the on-premise location and the vCloud organization. You'll be managing this firewall yourself. With this site-to-site VPN you will have to create some firewall rules to allow traffic between the two organizations. In this slide I will show you the components that is used by Zerto. In this example I will use a vSphere environment, but the same counts for a Hyper-V environment. So let's get started by deploying a ZVM in the environment. This installs a plugin inside the vCenter server or the System Center server from Hyper-V. With the ZVM, once that is installed, what we can do is actually start to pair it with the cloud components. In this case the PeaSoup Cloud. The ZVM will be paired with the ZCC server. As PeaSoup we will provide you the IP address for the ZCC, which will be an IP address which sits inside your vCloud organization. Obviously we will need a site-to-site VPN before we do the pairing between the two sites. The next step will be actually installing the vArrays. So in the next animation that I will display, we will install these vArrays on each host. As mentioned earlier in the requirements, the vArrays are installed on each host. This is important while Zerto is actually capturing the data. It doesn't matter where the virtual machine sits, on which host or on which data store, because Zerto is virtual aware, and that means that if you vMotion the server around, Zerto will still capture the data and migrate the data over to the secondary site. The next step is to create a virtual protection group. A virtual protection group is a consistency group for applications, which means we can have multiple servers inside a protection group to recover from for that application. Multiple protection groups can be deployed throughout your Zerto disaster recovery environment. And there's no limit on the amount of virtual protection groups that can be replicated to PeaSoup. Once the virtual protection groups are created, the replication starts. This replication can take some time depending on the size of the virtual machines. Once the replication is finished, a continuous process of replication will go on. This is an asynchronous replication. Once that is done, your virtual machines in that VPG are protected. So in this demonstration where I will start with the vCenter server. I've got the ZVM server installed. And what I will do first of all is install the ZVM server. It should be pretty easy and pretty quick, so we go quite quickly through this part. So let's wait up till the wizard comes up. Standard wizard stuff, so click next first of all to continue. The license agreement, so make sure you check accept and then click next. If you want to read it through, click next. And then the path settings. This is all pretty standard stuff. The next part is quite important. The express installation or custom installation. For production environment we always choose custom installation. This is where we fill in the details for the environment. The next bit is the ZVM setup. Make sure the IP address that is in here is the same IP address of the server itself. Just make sure you double check. In this case I will do that via a command prompt. That's all correct, and I leave the rest of the defaults. You can install the service as a local system account, which we do by default, and then you can choose a SQL server if you want to. For large deployment, SQL server might be more preferable, but in the demo we use the embedded. Fill in your site details. So the site details is your on-prem details. So in this case I will put PeaSoup HQ in headquarters. With our location Weybridge, or PeaSoup demo I actually filled in, and you fill in your contact information. This will show up later on in your main part. Fill in your vCenter details. If you would do a Hyper-V install, you put in your system center details. I'm using an appliance, so I've got root in here with the root password, and I will click next to continue. And the next screen can be discarded. This is the Cloud Director connectivity, which is for the service provider. The Zerto wizard will do an automatic check to make sure everything is alright, and then we will continue to install. So the installation itself will take a couple of minutes, depending on the server. I'll fast forwarded it a little bit in the video, otherwise we will be sitting a few hours in this video, which is not preferable. So once this is done, ZVM is installed. It's that pretty simple. You don't have to touch this server at all anymore. You can click open ZVM interface on the server, but I prefer to use a web browser or my vCenter. In this case I'm going to a web browser. I'll log in with the credentials for the vCenter server. So whatever you fill in your vCenter, that's the credentials you log in for your web client. Now we're going to pair it. So the pair address will be the address of the ZCC, which I showed you earlier, and in my case that is 4.8, and I'll start the pairing. The pairing, what will happen is actually you make the connection between the two sides, and the licenses will be automatically applied to your environment. This normally takes a few seconds, and there we go, we are paired. So we have paired the environment. The next step is to install the virtual replication adapters. This comes up automatically if there's no VRAs installed. In this screen you can see the available hosts. In my case just a single one because I use the demo environment, and what I will do is install a new VRA. So in the VRA details you fill in the details of the host, the root password of that particular host, the data store. So I prefer to use the local data store of that server itself. You select the network, the RAM of that appliance. By default is 3 gig. If you've got a lot of VMs you can fill in a larger amount of RAM, or smaller when you just do testing. Give it a static IP address of the subnet of the vCenter, or in the same subnet as the vCenter. And after that is done, you press install and the VRA will be automatically deployed into your environment. The VRA itself is a pretty small appliance. It's 3 gig of RAM, as I said, 1 CPU and 12 gig of RAM, 12 gig of storage. And I will show you that in here. It will be installed automatically in your vCenter environment. It's bounded to that particular host that you install it for. So we can follow the progress within the ZVM, within the dashboard, and this will take normally a few minutes to complete. Again, I fast forward this for the purpose of this video. You can see in the running tasks how far what the status is, what has been done. So it's a great overview of the task that's happening. So let me check in vCenter. The VRA is powered on, and if I click on the summary part, you will see the 1 CPU, the 3 gig of memory and the 12 gig of storage that's been using. So it's a pretty small appliance. We're nearly there. And that's it. So the VRA is installed, and the next thing that we can do is start using the VPGs. So first of all I will go quickly through the dashboard. So in the main dashboard you can see the health of the VPGs, the IAPs and the statuses. The next tab is the VPGs. We don't have any. I will create it in the next demo, and this will also populate the VMs. The next slide is the sites. So where are you replicating to and what direction? Then you can see up the setup tab where you see the configuration of the VRAs. Offsite backups are not used in PeaSoup, maybe later on in the year. The next tab will be the monitoring. So with monitoring you can see what's going on in the environment. The last tab is very useful, it's the reports one. So we can actually check what is going on, the performance and the recovery reports. So in the next demo video I will create a virtual protection group. This virtual protection group will help to provide consistency for applications. So in vCenter, I've selected the demo DR machine, which is the one that we want to replicate, and I will click in vCenter the Zerto tab. This will open the console automatically. The next step what I will do is select the VPG tab, and you can create the VPG from here, or alternatively when you select the machine you can create the VPG from there. So I will create the VPG name, which is demo VPG, and I can click next. As you can see here you can add multiple servers to it. For the purpose of this demo I'll add another one. So you can actually see you can define boot orders and boot delays. Add another group, boot group in there if you would like to. All is possible for a secondary boot group, but I will remove that for the purpose of this video. So let's cancel this and remove that other node, and I will click next. Then I will select the recovery side, the recovery organization, which will be my PeaSoup internal. So let's select that. There it is. And then I can select a profile. By default the system service profile, but if you want to change some settings you can go into custom, change the journal history, set the target RPO alerts, you can set test reminders, you can disable and enable when traffic compression in here too. I click next. By default with vCloud environment, the profiles for the vCloud are selected automatically, so I won't have to change anything here, so I will click next, and then I go into the recovery side of things. I check for the guest customization, and then I will check the networks that I've defined within the organization network of vCloud Director. I can add some scripts, some post scripts, or some pre-recovery scripts if I would like to, and then I go into the network settings of the NIC. You have to select it, and I can select two ways the IP address for the re-IPing. I can select either by clicking this pen here and select IP pools or DHCP or static, and then fill in my data center address, my data center subnet address. So let's save this. As you can see here, both addresses are filled in now for me. Or alternatively, I can do everything in one go. When I click Edit Select, I can put in here the IP address. So let me put it at 172.20.4.144, and I can copy that over to my test network as well. Next, again, backup, offsite backup we don't use, so we'll go to the summary, and I can see here that from my local on-prem to the data center, I will replicate about 17 gig. Now this is where the creation of the VPG starts. I will fast forward some bits, because this in general takes a couple of minutes. But what we'll do is creating the virtual protection groups first of all at the secondary side, and we can see the progress with the tasks. And once the virtual protection group is created, the initial seed will start. So we can see that in here the syncing will start, and I can follow the progress in a few slides, in a few tabs. First of all, I can see it here, the initial sync 0%. I can check it on the dashboard. I can see that the VPG health is alright. And I can also select the VPG demo. Let me just see. Just click VPG here. So let's fast forward this in a second. Let's check where we are. So 4%. Of course, the initial seed will take longer. Once the seed is done, every change will be replicated, but depending on the size, it can take some time. Normally, we recommend to split out and schedule VPGs over a period of time and not select your whole environment at once. Obviously, that will take some considerable network bandwidth. So we are fast forwarding now, 37%. We will hitting something in a few minutes, 80%. Once that is all done, then it means that we are protected, and then again every change will be replicated. We're nearly there. So we can follow the progress. Everything is visible within Zerto. So the throughputs, the WAN traffics, the IOPS, etc., etc. So we're coming to the end of the process. So in total, my whole sync was about 10 minutes for this, because the bandwidth in my office is not that great. So once it is done, you will see a status of the VPG, which we're either meeting the SLA or not meeting the SLA. And in this case, we're meeting the SLA. So we got the SLA meet. The actual RPO is about 10 seconds at the moment. At the dashboard, you will see the VPGs, the VPG status, and what's going on. So in this part of the video we will do a failover test. So let's bring up the component slides back again, which we used before. And as you can see, we've got everything ready now to go. So there's a failover button created in this test, and as you can see, it's pushed on test at the moment. This is very important. This leaves the environment live in your production environment live. So when we press the button, what will actually happen is actually the vApps will be created on the on our cloud side, and within that vApp, the VMs will be deployed. So what is important to notice is that the vApp will be called testing recovery. So you can actually see that is all going well and live. So once it's done and everything is tested, we can then press the stop button, which will be presented to you once the test is completely there. So when we press the stop button, actually everything will be removed completely from the cloud environment. Please note that everything that you do during the test inside the cloud environment will be gone. So I will show this in the next video. So let's get on. So here we can see the Zerto dashboard again. And what I will do first is create a checkpoint. So a checkpoint is a point that we can actually recover back to if we want to. So I click the actions and I will create a checkpoint quickly. So I will show that up during the recovery, the testing recovery. So once that is done, I will select the VPG that I want to have this checkpoint on and save that. So the next step, I'm just going to see if the checkpoint is created. It's done. And let's go back to the dashboard and we will start the failover test. So it's important to know indeed the failover test should be on test, and the bar in below the dashboard remains grey. So when I click it, I can see my VPG over here. I will select that one that I want to use, this one, and I press next. It is a very easy process, just 3 clicks and you can fail over. As you can see here, the checkpoints, so you can select whatever checkpoint you want. You can see the checkpoint I've created before. So if you want to do it before, do you want to define your own checkpoint, you can do it. In this case, I will create the latest one. So I'll show you the latest. I press save and we go to next to start the failover test. The failover test will be presented by blue button, and the red button will be presented when you do a live. So when I click it, it will start the failover test. So you can see it here over here, the progress, and what is important to notice is that the live production environment on-prem will remain on. So I will demonstrate that. I will open the console on this one. Let me just go in here and type. This is the protection subnet. There you go. So what we do next is, let's go see the dashboard again. We're still in progress. It takes a few minutes because it will boot. Go into the vCloud director. Let me refresh this. And as you can see, there's a new vApp created with the title Demo VPG Testing Recovery. Same counts for the virtual machine. It will have testing recovery behind it. When you click that, I'll need to wait for a second. It's not powered on. But what is important to note is the testing recovery. Everything that you do during the testing recovery will be deleted after you stop the test. So make sure you save any work or any progress or document anything you do during your recovery tests. Alright, let me see how far we are. We're nearly there. It goes quite quickly normally the test, depending on the amount of virtual machines and data. Let me refresh this. There we go. And let me get the console open. During the testing, because I'm using a Linux machine, it will reboot a few times. It will change the VMware tools to the vCloud tools in this case. I'm trying to log in. I think I will reboot another time. Yep, there we go. One more time to reboot the machine. And meanwhile, I popped up the demo machine so you can see that we're still live on the other side. Luckily, it's a small machine, so let me stretch it. There we go. I will log in with my demo account. Let's do an ifconfig to see the IP address, and as you can see, what we defined earlier during the VPG re-IP'd the machine into a 172.20 subnet, which is running from the data center now, while I'm still live in my on-premise. So this is actually great to start testing. Doesn't affect your production environment, so users won't be noticed, and you can do this test anytime you like. So everything is there. You can see the stop button is present now. One thing important to notice is when I click the demo VPG that we're still replicating to the other side, so we still continue with our protection of the VPGs. Let's press the stop button. The result is a success for me. So I'll put a note in, failover test is working, right, and I'll stop the test. So what happens next is actually that everything that we created in the vCloud environment, in the data center environment, will be removed automatically. So let me just refresh this, and you can see the machine will be powered off. We're nearly there. The stopping will go quite quickly, to be honest. There it goes, it's gone now, and if I go in the vApps, you will see that the vApp is gone as well. So there we are, everything is tested. We're still meeting SLA. One more important thing to notice, if you want to see the results, we can click the reports button, and we can see in the reports all the tests that we've done. We can select the test that we just done earlier. I'm just clicking the wrong button. So there's my test. Let me click it, and we can export that to a PDF file. So open the PDF file. So that is your proof that your test worked fine. We can see the notes that I put in and all the steps that are done by Zerto during this test. So that was this part of the failover test. So now we've done the test, it's time to do the real stuff, and we will do a complete failover from production to the cloud environment at PeaSoup. I'll bring up the component slide again, just to make sure that everything is visible for you and you know what's happening actually during this time. So what I will do first is click the start failover button, and as you can notice the block is now switched to live, and that will become red. Once it's done, what will happen is actually it shuts down the environment depending on the settings you set on your production environment, and it will start populating the vApps at your cloud environment. Once it is all done, depending again on the settings you've done, you can replicate back for failback. So that's the exact thing that we will do in the next demonstration. I will have the settings to set reverse failback, and I will have graceful shutdown of the VMs on the production environment before we actually replicate over. So here we are again in the portal, and what we're going to do next is do the replicate or do a failover. So let's check everything. As you can see in the vCloud environment, there was nothing. In the demo environment, in the production one, you can see the VM is still live over there. And what we now will do is switch the block to live, and as you notice, the block in the bottom will become red, so it is clear that we do a real failover. Downtime will be involved again. I can't say it enough, but downtime will be involved during a failover. So let's select the VPG and click next. And this screen you see before, we have a few extra options here. So obviously the checkpoint, which we used in the failover before. I'll click it here, and you can select the latest checkpoints or the ones you defined before. But for now, what we will do is just select the latest, and then we go to the next option. We have an extra option here called commit. So the commit option is pretty important. You can actually define an amount of minutes before it actually committing, so it goes live at the DRaaS side. I'm going to leave that standard. The VM shut down. Because I'm in a test, I want to gracefully shut down my VMs. My production environment is still live, so I can afford to have a graceful shutdown. Reverse protection is important. If you want to replicate back once you've replicated or once you've failed over, that's what the reverse protection does. It actually copies back the data to your production environment. Now we click next, and the start over button, you will see it is red, so I will click it now, and what will happen next is we do a failover before commit, and it starts the process, and the first thing that we'll do is actually shutting down the VMs at the production site, as I gave that order inside the options earlier. So inside the vCloud director, I'll refresh it, you will notice that there's a new VApp created called demo VPG, and it starts to import the VM inside that VApp. So that will take a few minutes before everything is booted up, as you notice, but the RTO is pretty quick because it is literally the VM is already there, and therefore it is pretty just booting up the virtual machine. So we're 35% in, as you can see. So normally this goes quite quickly, and let me see where we are. The shutdown is complete. We wait for the commit before we actually delete the virtual machine on the live environment, on the production environment. And let's refresh it over here in the vCloud director. We're nearly there. So, and once we are fully committed, then what we will see here is that we unprotect the group, and we will remove the virtual machine in a second. Let's check it quickly. Where we are committing, so we're committing now, updating the VPG, so the VPG will actually be recreated at the DR site, replicating back. So by the looks of it, it's done. So the demo DR machine is gone on the production side. It's all live now at the in the data center in the PeaSoup environment. Let me refresh, and I will log into the virtual machine. Drag it into the screen. Now it starts booting up. So it's the last boot order. Resize a little bit. Right. Where we are. So the VPGs are there. So because we checked the reverse now, what it will do is actually syncing back to the production environment, to the on-premise environment. So we're now busy with reversing back. So in this screen you can actually, there's a few tabs, views in here, general performance backup. We're in the performance view. I'll click back in a second, just check everything. The reverse back will normally take about a couple of minutes per virtual machine. So let me click the general tab in a second. So, and as you can see, we're delta syncing again. So all the changes that are made will be synced back. So meanwhile, the virtual machine is logged in. So I will log in and do an ifconfig to have the IP address visible again. There's nothing on this DR machine, it's purely an empty Linux box for this case, but as you can see we have a 172 subnet again, which is the failover address or the data center address for this organization. So failover is passed, machine is back, we're back in production, so everything looks fine so far. The thing of failback is, the failback situation is exactly the same as a failover. What we actually do with a failback is failing over a live environment again, but then from the data center or from the PeaSoup cloud back into your live environment. It's exactly the same steps as what we're performing now. Meanwhile, the SLA, or meanwhile the delta sync is done. We can see we're meeting the SLA again. So everything is back up and running. We've got one VPG with a single VM in there. And the status is green again, so which means is that we're meeting the SLA. As we can see here, Again, we're meeting the SLA, but the direction is now from the data center back to the live environment or to your on-prem environment. Inside this virtual center, you can see there was nothing left anymore, and you can see here in the vCloud environment that it's all there. So that is it for today. Thank you very much for attending. If you want to contact PeaSoup, just go to the website peasoup.net. I'm on Twitter if you want to follow me at hbuter, or on LinkedIn. For any information regarding disaster recovery as a service, please go to info@peasoup.net or email info@peasoup.net. And we are more than welcome to help you out with any quotes, questions, etc. Again, many thanks, and see you next time. Thank you. Cheers. Bye.